Hi, Voices of the Bench community. This is John Isherwood with the PR team here at Ivoclar. As we wind down the year, all of us at Ivoclar want to thank you for your partnership, your trust, and your continued support. We wish you and your family a very happy, healthy, and safe holiday season. I'd also like to take a moment to thank Elvis and Barb for continuing to make this podcast so special, bringing our community together to share ideas, learn from one another, and grow as a profession. From all of us at Ivoclar, have a wonderful holiday season. And as Santa likes to say, may your days be merry, your nights be bright, and may all your smiles sparkle like freshly fallen snow. Ho, ho, ho.
Welcome to Voices from the Bench, a dental laboratory podcast. Send us an email at info@voicesfromthebench.com and follow us on Facebook and Instagram. Greetings and welcome to episode 405 of Voices from the Bench. My name is Elvis.
My name's Barbara. What's up?
What's happening? Last episode of 2025.
Oh my God. Congratulations. I think we're going on 8 years then, right?
Yeah. I come April-ish usually is when we hit our year mark, so.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
So how was your Christmas? What's going on?
Christmas was pretty good. Saw extended family Christmas Eve, Christmas Day. Chilled. It was pretty nice. Went for a nice long run and had a day to
fun?
relax. It was. It
Good
was
for
actually
you.
nice. Yeah. Decent weather and no obligations. It was quite nice.
Well, we're going into the new year and it's going to be 32 Thursday morning, New Year's Day.
Nice.
I know you chuckle, but for me, that's exciting.
Yeah.
That's what it should have been on Christmas, but on Christmas it was like 78.
Oh,
On
geez.
New Year's it's going to be 32. So yeah, we're excited.
Yeah, we were around 50 degrees on Christmas, so almost 60.
There's your Voices from the Bench episode of weather.
Brought to you by.
Okay.
But hey, just want to say thanks to everyone through
Yep.
2025 that sponsored us, listened to us, all of our guests. We just had a great year and look forward to
Yeah.
2026. We're not slowing down.
Right on. Shout out to Joe. Thank you for the club and for being positive and all the support.
Absolutely.
Yep, I echo that.
So before we start talking about this week's episode,
Oh, God.
we need to remind everyone that we are not perfect. I
Ugh.
know, it's hard to believe. But we had this amazing conversation you're about to hear, but during it, we somehow lost all of Barb's audio.
Can you believe that?
I don't even know
Ugh.
how.
I know.
I don't know. I'm going to blame
It was
somebody
sad.
other than us. But yeah, luckily, we were able to get everyone else's audio. So all the guests you're about to hear, we didn't have to re-record with them. But during the editing process, when I really don't do a lot, just mostly cosmetic, we did our best to re-record all of your questions and comments, right?
Yeah, so if I sound like I'm coming out of a black tunnel, that's why.
Yes.
But we did good. We did good. We tried our best.
Yeah, it's not
You
the
did
same
good.
as having the original audio. We're not going to go back in there and put in all the ha ha ha, oh yeah, I agree kind of things. That would take forever. But
Yeah.
the content is there. And, you know, the most important thing is the guest. We did get their audio. So pre-apologizing for
great.
this. Yeah, great conversation. Barb, you were there. I promise everyone you were there. But it does sound a little weird. But we did our best.
All right, well, let's do it.
On to the episode. So this week we meet a couple of Canadians and one from Australia that have found a way to mill partials to completion,
Yeah.
and which I'm really into this, to do a digital reline on an old denture.
Awesome.
Sound a little crazy?
A little bit.
It did to us too. But what George Cowburn has done with Lab Pilot might just change the way you think of doing digital removables. You see, George is an engineer that turned denturist and wanted a better way to do metal-based partial. Working with another denturist, Robert MacLeay, they set off to do just that. Robert understands removables, but he needed some help with the digital aspect of it. and he found and brought over from Australia Kaylee Jilbert to take everything to the next level.
Yeah, she's a bright young lady.
Yeah, so we talk all about how it works, how it improves fit, and how you might never do a traditional reline again. And believe it or not, that this way is better and even faster.
There's people doing backflips right now.
I think it's awesome. So join us as we chat with George Cowburn, Robert MacLeay, and Kaylee Jilbert. So, Barb, CAM has been a big topic for us in the past few weeks, and now that we're such experts on this matter, I actually recently learned about an exciting new partnership.
Oh, yeah? What's that, Mr. Cam expert?
Well, you don't have to be a dick about it, but everybody knows our good friends at Ivoclar.
Yes, of course we do.
Yep, good people. And they probably also know about their iVotion dental solution.
Do you mean the one where the discs are already split into two colors so that you can design and mill a complete denture all in one shot?
Yeah, it's crazy how that works. Don't know how it works, but you're right. That is it. There's no bonding of the teeth to the denture base.
Well, I bet that makes everybody's life easier, including mine. What a goopy mess that can be.
You betcha. So until now, you can only mill iVotion dentures on a closed system. However, Ivoclar's been working with Follow Me Technologies to implement the workflow into HyperDent CAM.
Wow.
That means you'll be seeing it on a lot more open machines.
All right, so give it up. That's amazing, but do tell. Do you know which ones?
Well, I know for starters, we're going to see it on the Roland DWX 53 series mills, which a lot of people have. Yep. And the Imagine iMills.
So that is crazy. Awesome. These HyperDent dudes are everywhere, right?
I mean, not just everywhere, but everywhere. They're like PMMA chips stuck to my...
Oh, we got it. Hard stop. Nobody wants the mental picture you're about to paint for us.
Voices from the bench. The interview. I was going to say, I heard nobody else, but we're going anyways. So this is super exciting. A friend reached out to me and said, Elvis, how come you haven't had Perfit on the podcast? And my first question was, what the hell is Perfit? And they said, why don't you have him on and find out? And she connected me with George. I got last names. Hold on. I had it up, and then George took forever, and I lost it. George Cowburn?
Cowburn. Silent W. You'd never guess.
Cowburn. How are you, George?
I'm very well. Yourselves?
So we're doing great.
Doing fantastic. And where are you coming from?
I'm calling from Kelowna, British Columbia. So it's on the west side of Canada, which is a couple hours out of Vancouver.
You know what?
Nice.
I swear to God, Vancouver was one of the most amazing places that I've ever visited. We went on a cruise to Alaska, and we left from Vancouver, and it's just an amazing, amazing area.
You know what? Once you move here, you never move back. You just stay here. So yeah, this is one of the better places to be in Canada, and we're grateful.
Do you stay because you're trapped, or do you stay?
It's the warmest place in Canada, so you know that's where we all like to go eventually.
I hear sarcasm there. And also joining you from Perfit is Kaylee Jilbert.
So I'm not with George's company, but I work...
Oh my lord,
Yeah.
this is so confusing.
Sorry.
Okay, so no, you're fine. We're gonna figure this all out. We have a whole hour. So
Yeah.
Kaylee, what do you do?
Yes. So I'm the digital tech for Rob. I'm doing all the digital designs and running the mills, and we work directly with George.
So you really do every design? That's amazing.
Exactly.
The brains of the operation.
And then Robert MacLeay?
MacLeay. The R is silent.
MacLeay. Oh.
MacLeay.
Yeah, there's no R whatsoever.
I'm a denturist. And
Oh, nice.
for those of you unfamiliar with what a denturist is, it's a clinical practice, right? We are half technician, half clinician, if you will. And Kaylee is my primary technician, and the source of all things digital that are good. So,
The Wundertech.
Well, let's start with George. Tell us where you come from, how you got into this crazy world of teeth, and what exactly Perfit is.
Yeah, I mean, it's a crazy world that we live in, so it should be accompanied with an equally crazy story. And so I think that I can tick those
Yeah.
boxes. Yeah, right now we are actually rebranding, and so we are leaving the Perfit moniker behind, and we are now evolving into Lab Pilot. And so we kind of go through a little bit of the past and the reason that we've made that pivot. But I was listening to one of your last guests, the GreatLabs.io guys, and it's funny how many of our stories overlap because we all start
Yeah.
doing something and then realizing, oh, the part of that was a good idea, but part of that really wasn't. And so we end up, being
That's
pulled
how
in
we
the
learn.
direction. That's exactly it. That's the only way we seem to learn. I
Yeah.
don't know if you're like me, but that's how I learned.
Yeah.
I wasn't even in dental. I was in engineering, and I really had the delusion of being an inventor. I didn't know what I wanted to invent, though, right? So I thought engineering school was probably the closest thing that they
That's
had to inventor school. So I enrolled there, and after I finished the first year, I kind of realized that it maybe wasn't the inventor school that I thought it was. And so I decided to take open studies, and that meant picking whatever courses you want and really having no direction. So I was taking quantum mechanics, philosophy, and taking sociology and psychology, and basically about to have deep thoughts about being unemployed.
You're so marketable.
Right? Exactly right. And so,
What are you
that
good at? A little bit of everything.
and absolutely nothing too. Yeah. At the time, I was
Yeah.
like preparing musical instruments, so all brass instruments. I was a cabinet maker, so I had 101 jobs. And then, out of pure luck and coincidence, my mother was a career counselor that were showing new jobs to all these new Canadians that were immigrating from
Wait
other
a minute.
parts of the
Wait a
world.
minute. Your mother was a career
That's
counselor and
correct.
she let you do open studies?
Well, it was kind of hard to
I heard
direct
that
me.
too.
I was going my own way. I was going to be hard to direct by
Lost
anyone.
cause? Is that what
Yeah,
you're saying?
a little bit, but I was on my own journey. Yeah, yeah, exactly. But it was a really,
Love it.
amazing because she came to me and she's like, I met this guy. He makes dentures. He's a wonderful man. You should meet him. And my jaw dropped. I couldn't be less interested. I'm gonna tell you the truth right now. I'm like, oh God, false teeth? No, no. And to her credit, and to what changed my life was she kept nagging me and kept asking me to do it. And I made her a deal that if I went and met this person, that she wouldn't bring it up ever again. And
Nice.
so I went and I met him and I saw lost wax capture. The same way the Greeks and the Romans would make statues thousands of years ago was still the way that we were doing things. And coming from engineering, I knew that in dental, like CEREC had been around since like 86, 87. Like
Yeah.
we'd had it in the crown and bridge space for decades, but none of that technology ever trickled down into removables. And so naive me thought, hey, this is going to be quick and easy. I'll be able to introduce them to a computer and a printer and a scanner, and well, away we go. And so that was 2003. So that's when I enrolled
So that was
into,
really early. You guys were early adapters.
yeah, yeah. That's when I had the vision of digital dentures. And that's actually what brought me to the denturist program in Alberta at NAIT. And so what I realized is that I needed to understand the foundational information before I could even go into the digital space. So I went through the traditional schooling, was opening up traditional analog clinics. We had 5 clinics at our height, and we
Wait a minute. You went through the whole denturist program and got licensed as a denturist?
correct, yeah, and
Oh.
and then after was a dentist for I was for 10 years, and I was still wanting to explore the digital space, and we kind of got caught waiting for it to be available, someone to just make it available to the market. And so we had been working with all of the really, really early versions of dental software, trying to make it work. Dental Wings, I was one of the first people to have a 7 series scanners and start with them. I went to Germany and visited Exocad and tried to convince them to get into dentures. I had a denture that we had printed with the beta version of 3Shapes denture software, and I brought it to Exocad and I begged them to do it too. So like I had been trying to really get digital dentures to be a thing for a long time, but there's a reason that we were last because it's really hard. It's probably one of the hardest things to do, right? Because we have
Yeah.
arbitrary occlusions. We have, our base is a waterbed that moves around on us, so, that
Yeah, it's
was
not a hard margin,
not
hard
at all.
stops.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I started to like pick away at my early dreams of being an inventor, and I filed a patent or two, and they turned out to be, something that was unique. And then I realized that there was a weird thing in our college bylaws that if you're a patent holder and you don't want to give it away to the memberships for free,
Really?
you're not allowed to be a member anymore.
All right, tell me why. I'm curious.
And that it was in our bylaws. So it's actually part of the college, the Health Professions Act, as we call it here, bylaws. And maybe the reason was that they didn't want someone to, find out some much better way of doing things and then leave everyone else in the lurch. So I can maybe understand some of the
Interesting. Yeah.
logic behind it. But to be honest with you, people like Robert are far better at being chairside with patients than I ever was. It was never something that I was gifted at. I liked it, but I didn't have that thick skin that some people have, and I took all my problems home with me. And so,
Mm.
I like to solve problems that don't have names. I feel like those problems I
You're
can
an
solve.
engineer.
Yeah, that's exactly it. Like at heart, I really am. And so this is really where partnering with people like Robert, who are exceptional clinicians, and Kaylee, who's an exceptional designer, that's the only way that I was going to amount to anything is by finding people that were good at their respective arts. And so we started with Perfit, and we really tried to go end to end, machine, software, everything. We were basically trying to do what the PM7 did with Ivoclar, but with metal and really trying to push the envelope. But of course, it was a very big, hairy, audacious plan that we ran into reality a few times. And so I think this is a great place to bring Robert and Kaylee into the conversation because that's when we met them, trying to figure this all out.
Yeah, well, what a great segue for Robert and Kaylee.
Yeah.
How did you guys all meet?
Well, that's a
Go ahead.
interesting question.
Nobody remember?
No, but well, oddly enough, I had a colleague of mine that attended the Digital Denture Study Club that George was dealing with in BC at the time, and sort of got my attention, saying, "Hey, you have to look at this. There's really something here. You have to look at this."
I'm going to jump in. I'm going to jump in right now. Sorry. You cannot take credit. I cannot take credit. That was the late, great Esther Schwenning, who you've had on the podcast before.
Oh, yeah. You know what? Esther was so amazing.
Yeah.
I really, really, really respected her.
Yeah. She was the guiding light and the whole force behind that. So I just have to interject that. Sorry.
Yeah, no, very well said, George. And I think the point that I had, I'm a clinician with an analog practice. At this point, when I meet George, I've been practicing for 30 years. And
30 years.
And all we ever did was an analog process. Now, these were, high-end dentures, and lots of, 50% of my practice is implant-supported dentures. But
wow.
as that tide turned towards digital, there was something in me that I just found it very intriguing. And let's face it, we all need to learn. We all want to learn. And there's something exciting about learning. And I think for the first time in 30 years, I was excited again about making teeth. And what really stood out about what Perfit was doing was just something that nobody else was doing. There are lots of ways to make a full denture digitally, to design it. But when it comes to partial dentures, this is the great hope that everybody has. How can we a digital partial denture? And there are little side shoots to that. You can design and send off a frame to be printed, and it comes back into an analog workflow. But the whole idea of taking from start to finish, and when you think about these mixed cases, a full upper denture against a partial lower denture, and you're going to make half of it with an analog process, and half of it with a digital process. I really fumbled with that idea. I wanted digital to remove all of those cumulative margins of error that are common in the manufacture of a conventional denture, right? You take, I say this to my patients all the time. I take an impression that shrinks 2% before you're home. We pour a model that shrinks 2%, and then we manufacture a denture. And by the time this goes in your mouth, we're down 8%. Why do you think I have to grind it to fit? It's straightforward.
That's a lot of good point.
What digital allowed us to do was erase all of those margins of error and really move towards an end product that required less adjustment, less everything. But the partial denture was the problem because there was just no way to do it. So here comes Perfit with a way to produce out of a mill titanium milled partial with teeth and acrylic. All you have to do is polish it once it comes out of the mill, and even the polishing is negligible. But that's basically where we're at. And I've always felt George had a tiger by the tail with respect to designing the partial denture workflow, because it just allowed us now to digitally produce the entire case instead of producing, let's say, the upper denture digitally, then what? Handing it off to an analog technician so we could mount it, incorporating a margin of error. Let's let the plaster set. And it's just a constant ongoing problem. And so this really gave us a chance to design it, produce it in the mill, and just kind of let the magic happen. But in fairness, this has been some, a truly Canadian expression, some tough sledding. The first cases
tough sledding.
the first cases, the first cases that we did were not ideal.
Yeah.
And it made me realize that what we needed to do was incorporate design in-house. Because if you think about it, where are frames made? Well, they're made in labs that make frames. And I'm a denturist. I make dentures. I sure didn't make frames. I designed countless of frames over the years, but we would always farm them out to a commercial lab. They would return to us a naked skeleton, upon which we did all of the rest of the analog process. But when you're talking about a digital process, now it was giving us the chance to realize that we had to learn how to design frames. We had to learn, what were the offsets? How can we make this thing work in the mouth, not just on the screen? And that's, sort of going back and forth with George, that's where we, fell into place. And quite frankly, it was Kaylee that learned how to make this stuff all beautiful for us and make it work. I've designed frames, but I was certainly not a frame designer. When I think of designing frames, I'm talking about drawing a picture on a lab script. That's a far cry from designing a frame. I was certainly not an analog technician in that sense.
So when you got into digital, did you start designing yourself, or does Kaylee come into play first?
Well, just prior to Kaylee's arrival, I would say that I spent many nights on a laptop trying. and I, other than if you've dealt with 3Shape, other than, stumbling across those early errors that, would really keep you awake for hours. The only time I was designing was at night, and our first foray was into printed transitional dentures. We would just go the easy route, and once we have the mill with through Perfit at the time, that's when we started, expanding the design, if you will, and that's where I knew I needed a Kaylee to help me through this. And quite frankly, we had placed an ad on Indeed, and I remember doing an interview over Zoom with her from Australia. And who'd have thought? Just talk about falling out of the sky. She happened to be interested in a gentleman who lived in Ottawa, and she was moving here. And it was like the stars aligned, and the rest is history.
All right, Kaylee, let's hear your story.
Yes, so I'll go back a little bit. So when I was 19, I started dental assisting, and I just fell in love with everything dental. And casually, I guess through work, I was given more opportunity to do some lab stuff, and here and there I'll do, wax pipe blocks, special trays, just the basic things.
Mm-hmm.
And then eventually I was like, I think I like the lab stuff more than the dental assisting side of stuff. So
We're
I
cooler.
decided,
Yep.
yeah, I like the creativity part of it, I guess. And I decided to do my studies. I did my studies in Melbourne. So I moved to Canada and I started with Rob, and yeah, it's been a massive growth experience for me as a technician and as a person living abroad. And yeah, I guess with Rob, I was given the opportunity to actually do stuff. He trusted me to try new things, make mistakes, not worry about those mistakes, if you will, and that gave me the confidence to keep building my own.
That sounds like a really perfect opportunity.
Were you
Yeah.
designing frames in Australia?
No, I wasn't doing, honestly, before I came here, I wasn't doing anything to do with lab, really. This was my first real job. And I started here with full dentures and then started to go towards the frameworks, which are tricky, but we've definitely
But you had some
perfected them.
3-shape experience, correct?
Yeah, just at university.
Yeah.
But it's,
Well,
you
more
know
than
how
I had.
you know how university is. Like, they grade you on a crown that isn't actually that good.
Oh yeah, totally.
They're a little bit too lenient.
Yeah.
So Robert, how did you know that it was time to get a digital designer for your practice? Like, that's a big deal.
Well, that was, as I said, I was looking specifically to hire someone that could come in and be a digital technician. I had at the time, I can't remember, there might have been 3 or 2, at least 2 analog technicians, and we were looking for a digital technician to come in and fill those spots of the digital void that we'd created. So really, it was a case of learning from each other and listen, I've made dentures for a long time. I know what I want to do, but don't confuse me with someone that understands the finer workings of the software. I can design a full denture, but and I could easily figure out a partial denture. That's not the problem. I think my challenge would be more in importing the scans and all of those other more skilled aspects that Kaylee, brings to the table and knows how to be quick and efficient. It would take me 2 hours to digitally set up a full denture. I could probably do it 30 minutes in an analog world.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I get you.
So,
I get you. It's complicated sometimes, just setting up cases.
But what I would say though is it's extraordinarily easy to teach digital setups for someone with an analog background to sit and have the screen in front of you and to be able to talk about tooth position and relationship to the resorbed ridge, and that it's remarkably easy to be a good instructor in a digital world when you've got an analog background.
Good point. All right, George, what is Perfit?
Well, I mean, Perfit was how we started, and now Lab Pilot is what we've grown into. And so, what Lab Pilot is, it's all good. It's we're trying to still get used to it ourselves. It was really basically the evolution, just like the great Labs.io guy. I remember he was talking about giving away scanners and that whole model. And so, we were essentially running down a model of end-to-end, where we were providing the material, the CAM file, the everything. We'd supply the machine. And so we were like trying to get basically the PM7 type model. But the challenge that we found was that, it was a lot to take on, and it was really down to support. Support was the bottleneck. And the products were amazing and the workflows were great. But to make the commitment to a user that you're going to use something that's going to be reliable, scalable, dependable, that is different than like a proof of concept or a beta product. And so really that was the lessons that we were learning, is like the lessons of product maturity and going from an idea to a proof of concept to an alpha, a beta, a minimum viable product, and then actually a mature product. And if you come to market before you're ready, you basically get into that support trap, where you're just trying to, patch the holes from the day before, and then you'll have time to be able to improve it, but the day's already done by the time you patch your holes, and the next day starts with the same challenge. Really, it was about trying to understand what we could do and fully support and have success on both sides. And Robert and Kaylee are amazing for helping us really mature and go through that product life cycle and understand like how scalable is this really. And so that's where something really strange, again, serendipity seems to knock on my door often. We had a customer request to do a reline, like a traditional reline, using our method.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, well, I guess so. I can't see why it wouldn't work. What if we just used a puck like a flask, and you could put your reline in there and scan the tissue fitting surface and then add and mill it down? Like, it would even fit better, because we know milled bases fit better because they don't have the warping that Robert was talking about earlier. And the
Yeah.
interesting part too is that, well, if we could do that, we could do wax ups, we could do a lot of different things because it's the same analog world. So carded teeth, wax, all that stuff can come back, but still have the advantages of digital. And that was like a oh my God moment, and also a little bit of kick yourself in the pants moment, because like, why didn't you start here? That would have been a lot smarter place to start. And so what we've called it is the trad digital. It's traditional and digital together, and that's really how we saw Crown and Bridge evolve, right? Like the Roland 50 and 51 changed the game because they made it cheap and easy, and people could take their diagnostic wax ups and scan them and have a zirconia copy of it. And so that's what let them get more comfortable with it. And then they started to do digital design in CAD, and then they started going modelless. So like you can see the evolution that it already has a good precedent in Crown and Bridge. So the reason that it blew up in Crown and Bridge is because it did become cheap and easy. And right now, if you want to make a denture, you can buy the PM7 and the 3Shape software and all the different accessories that are required to go with it. And that's a very large investment to have to do to make your first denture. The ROI is a bit down the road. And so what we really realized was that in order to get the 80% of people that are still analog to really take this seriously, is we did need to make it a lot easier to use and also meet them where they were at, instead of asking them to stretch and come join us in the crazy land where we're playing with all these wonderful things.
Yeah.
And one of the funniest things too is that, when Kaylee's been posting this online, most of the comments are like, AI, fake, no way. And, we're laughing in the background. It's like, oh, we wish it was AI. It would have been a lot easier, trust me.
Yeah.
But yeah, it is unbelievable. Holding this in your hand really makes you go like, what am I even looking at? Like, it does leave you in that state of disbelief, like this is somehow magic. And that is an amazing feeling that never really gets old. But to only have that be in the hands of a few, I think, is a bit of a crime. So figuring out really how we can get digital to start touching people's lives, customers' lives, get better fitting cases sooner. That's the end goal for all of us. So really, that's been about how do we actually accomplish this, and that's what Esther, and us founding the Digital Study Club was all about. Is really trying to help people make that leap and try to make it easier at every step.
So I'm curious, how did you know and get connected with Esther? I saw her a lot on social media, and that was how I found out about
We
her.
happen to live in the same neck of the woods, so that was great. And so we had a lot of the same people in our networks, and Esther changed my life. I'm not going to lie, in more than one way. The first way she did was she was one of the first. She was a pioneer, as you know, and so was I.
Yep.
And it was a really lonely world in the first couple of years, right? Like there wasn't a lot of us. And not only did she show that this was possible, but she had fun doing it. Like she made it look like it was the greatest thing ever, and that was so infectious. And like we had the idea of a digital study club, and she filled the room in weeks. Like it went from concept to reality remarkably quickly. And that woman had absolute magic in a bottle, and I miss her every day. But it's part of the legacy she leaves behind, is like really helping people, not being secretive. We're lab technicians at heart, and we all keep our secrets, and we all have our secret techniques, and we had to break out of that mold. We had to be like, look, for this to work, we just have to share how we're doing it. And guess what? We're not really in competition with each other. There's more than enough fish in the sea for us all. So that was really what she was, was amazing at. And it lives on.
You could just tell that she was really passionate just by the way that she talked and everything that she did. She was really, really an amazing technician and person.
Is her brewery still there?
Yeah, Trench Brewery is still there. Yeah, she there's a lot of things that she touched that are still around that will be for years. So
that's amazing.
Yeah, she's the godmother.
All right, George, I'm going to ask you again. What is Lab Pilot? I don't understand. What is it? I mean, is it a mill?
No, it's now. So it used to be. We used to be locked to one machine, and we used to lock to one thing. But now we are opening up to all open machines. So Rollins, your IMIS, your Orums, your Red-Ons, everything that we can get our hands on, perfect. We want to open up to. And the other thing that we want to do is we want to make CAD CAM that doesn't need CAM and doesn't need CAD.
What the?
So like the reline thing, you just take a scan of the reline in the puck and then you upload it and then you get your machine file. So you never actually went through any steps of CAM, and all you did was upload it to the internet and then got your machine file. And it's 10 minutes later. So that's the amazing part of what we've been able to do with the old world, is like looking at the valuable pieces that we had developed. And hey, CAM takes a long time to figure out. And you've had Jordan on Greenberg, and it's great being able to make your own strategies and tweak and everything, but that does require certain skill level. And so what we wanted to do is really take that complexity off the table and give it to the users that are capable. But most people, the 80%, they just want it to work. They just want to have that person smile. So what we tried to do is make it easier. So it's all based in the cloud. So it is the first CAM that we're aware of that is cloud-based. And there's no subscription. It's all per case. It's just 20 Canadian pesos per job. So it's like 13 pesos. Yeah, I think it's 13 American dollars or something like that. But it's like very low cost and there's no obligation. And so that was the big challenge with CAM too, is that it was a big investment, and you add it to the machine, it's an even bigger investment. So, just trying to take away the barriers.
If we simplify, because I certainly get a sense of it's confusing to answer.
It's very, I don't know what's going on.
So just imagine.
Is it design software? What's going on?
Let me simplify for you.
Thank you, Robert.
Thank you. Imagine we have finished our clinical design. We have a digital design, whether it's a full denture or a partial denture. And now
3Shape or anything.
Right. We're working with 3Shape. So let's imagine we want to make that denture a final product, and we would upload our full denture, in this instance, to Lab Pilot, that will turn around and spill out the CAM that we need to produce it out of the mill. Okay, so it's basically a communication. So in the early years, what we were dealing with, George, we would send them the file. They would put on their special sauce and they would send it back. Now, it doesn't sound like much with a full denture, but let's just put this into perspective with a partial denture. Because a partial, in our instance, is a milled titanium frame with a milled acrylic and milled teeth, all as a monoblock. So you can imagine on the screen, not just a designed frame, but you're designing a frame with teeth and acrylic as a monoblock.
Wait a minute. This puck is coming with 3 different materials.
No, that's the point. We are melding these things together to make it all work. So we begin with a titanium frame. So we'll mill the titanium frame. We'll also mill a tooth puck, if you will, that allows for the frame to be loaded in. And then we add the acrylic. So without getting into too much of the finer details, we've taken a titanium frame, a tooth puck, and pink acrylic, and we've made that one solid block that is now in the mill, getting milled into a finished denture. So it's, George can fill in the blanks on that, but the reality is the titanium frame is partially milled, the tooth puck is partially milled, we add in the acrylic, and it's finally milled all together as one piece.
So it's almost like sandwiched together,
Yeah,
kind of?
essentially. But yeah, it's
Okay.
monolithic, right? So we're looking at a monolithic block, and inside that monolithic block is teeth colors and pink colors and metal. And so what we've done is figured out a clever way of being able to add these different things together. Think about your oversized milling solution from your PM7, right? You're
Yeah.
taking your pink puck, and then you're adding your teeth, and then you're bonding them in, and then you're machining your final. So in that respect, we have two different materials that we're working with, where you're adding one to the other. In this case here, we just have an extra one. So now we just have metal that we're also adding in there. And then we're getting a final product out that is now composed of metal, plastics, and pink acrylics. So we can also incorporate any kind of tooth material we want in there. So it can be your high-end Vita or your more economic pucks. It really is whatever the user wants to use. And so that requires, Kaylee to be able to design your framework file, your teeth file, and your monoblock file. And so that was, great working with people with that knowledge. Unfortunately, they just don't grow on trees. As much as I would love to shake that tree a couple more times.
Yeah.
So that,
We all would.
yeah, that's a bit of the challenge, is that eventually the world will be full of them, and that'll be great, and I will rejoice. But until that day, we had to figure out also where to meet denturists and labs where they were at right now. So the simplest operation of Lab Pilot doesn't even need a design. So we're not starting with a 3-shape or an ExoCAD design. We're starting with a scan of a reline, and that has been placed into a flask, and that flask can go into a milling machine. That flask, you mill it out of a PMA puck, and you keep reusing that flask over and over and over. So it's exactly like the old world that we're in, where we're just flasking, but instead of pouring up your model on your tissue fitting surface, you're scanning it. You're preparing your reline, you're adding more acrylic, and then you're milling down a perfectly fitting tissue fitting surface. So,
all right, someone's going to have to stop here, because this flask business is confusing
yeah,
me.
I know. It's like a three-headed dog.
To me, a flask is a huge metal, bolted in.
You're right.
Hydraulic pressed.
Yeah.
I'm really confused.
Yeah, imagine that we only have half of the clamshell. Right, so imagine that we're only using half of the flask, and that material is not metal. It's going to be a 30 or 35 millimeter puck, an acrylic puck. We're going to mill a container so that you can put a plaster and a reline teeth side down into it, so the tissue side is facing upwards. Right, so you have a nice.
So you're taking the patient's previous denture. Wash impression.
Yes.
Stick it into a half a flask with the intaglio surface sticking out.
Correct. And then we scan it. Yeah, exactly. And then we scan it. And so now we have a very high quality image of what we want the final tissue fitting surface to be. So essentially, it's just a 3D Xerox machine. So we already know what the final design should be. It's that impression that I see right there. So we send that file off to the CAM. And the CAM pretends like it's a full big block, and it's going to mill down exactly the surface that it just scanned. So after the scan, we can take the wash impression out. We can prepare the denture surface and reduce it a little bit more. We add our acrylic, and now we're going to be almost making it flush with the top of the puck flask. And then we just machine down exactly what we already scanned. So we have an amazingly fitting, and the thing is, it's in half the time as a regular analog reline, because we only have one plaster stage and one adding acrylic stage. So it's faster, and it takes about anywhere from 20 minutes to an hour, depending on how big and what quality you want for the fitting surface. But it's easy, and it's in the machine. So
how do you get the new surface to attach to the old denture?
So what we're doing is we're using, your regular acrylics, the ones that you'll already be using. So whatever acrylic someone's already using, instead of squeezing it between two sandwich halves, what we're doing instead is we're just going to fill it all the way to the top. So one side is going to be overbuilt completely, and as soon as it's cured, now we machine it down to the perfect fitting surface.
Oh. Robert, you've been doing the old style for 30 years. This had to have blown your mind.
I would throw in one little thing to say that we don't mill pink pucks. We
No.
mill pink acrylic. Okay. So the easiest way to describe it is we're not milling a solid block of pink, pre-manufactured. We're making our own pucks. We're making
Out
our
of
own
acrylic?
Yes, we're making our own acrylic. So we're adding, in the case of a full denture, or a partial for that matter, we use Dentsply HIPAA acrylic. So this material flows. If you've ever worked with it, it flows beautifully, bubble free, just brilliant. So you pour in the prescribed amount of acrylic, you let it set, cured in a pot under pressure, and now you've got your puck attached to your teeth. So you've got your pink now attached to your tooth block. And again, now it's milled as a monoblock, right?
So this is interesting because this makes those pucks cost what? Couple bucks?
No,
Yeah,
because you're using just
we've estimated as high as 5.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's insane.
Yeah, and that's the nice thing too, is that the material is just up to you, right? If you want to use a high-end puck, you can.
All right, Kaylee, what do you think of all of this? I'm kind of curious.
I was just listening and thinking it does sound quite confusing if you don't have the visual representation, I guess, to go off. I posted a video on my Partially Bitten page on Instagram. It's from June 3rd, and that kind of shows the process to visualize the idea of making your own pink puck, because it is a bit confusing, but I think since working here, I've underestimated how exciting this aspect of manufacturing is.
Yeah.
Just because I'm doing it every day, but when I started posting online, I was like, wow, wait, this is cutting edge,
And I can comfortably say in the 38 odd years of doing this that I've never had such, for lack of a better term, sexy frameworks. They're kind of thing that you're looking at them and going, wow, like they have to have curb appeal. You have to be able to hold it in your hand and say, wow, that looks beautiful. And even something as simple as let's say a 4 or 6 implant overdenture, and where you're going to have a metal portion, a metal reinforcement. We can do that all out of the mill. So we're literally producing out of the mill titanium frame, teeth, pink. It's and a brilliant finish of the frame and how it connects to the acrylic. Not like anything you can do with analog, and never mind what you can do with metal teeth in a tight occlusal space.
Yeah.
It's just brilliant to be able to incorporate that stuff. Metal onlays, things you could never do in an analog world, at least not well.
And these frames, they fit, right? Like, how do they fit?
Oh, absolutely.
They fit, right?
So what we're seeing are frames that this is it's a really good question. I'm glad you asked that, because it's the fundamental difference between a technician and a denturist in that sense is that we as denturists actually get to see how that framework fits in the mouth. And there's just a reality that when a frame fits, that clicking sound it makes that just snaps into place, where it's not too tight, not too loose. And this is one of the things that people don't realize about analog frames. And for all of the accuracy of that casting, the analog frame really fits because of that electro polishing, right? It's you're taking away all of that extra fitting surface. Success with a partial framework, analog or otherwise, is about going in, not creating pressure, not creating any tooth movement, ease of removal, but at the same time still being secure. So what we're seeing, frames that literally snap into place in a way that only titanium can do. Titanium clasps can be thinner and more, less adjustment needed. The rigidity of the clasp stays longer. So we're seeing frames that truly fit the way they're supposed to. And part of that is just learning how to design them, learning how to block out, not getting wound up in all of the detail that is digital. Because let's face it, the minute you scan a model, if you weren't an analog technician, you wouldn't realize that you needed to block out all of those areas to make this thing actually fit.
Yeah, and I think that's something we learnt over time was we were being too accurate.
Oh, yeah.
We were trying to thread the needle way too thin, And through time, I was just adding more block out in the areas where I was seeing adjustments were needed in the lab. And I think now we're at a point where hardly any adjustments are made in the lab and no adjustments in the clinic.
And it's as ridiculous as it sounds. I could scan. I'm comfortable saying this. I could go into the mouth, scan an upper and lower arch, and let's assume it's a tooth-borne partial. I could scan upper and lower arch, scan the bite, and return a finished denture the next appointment.
Yeah.
That's a milled titanium frame. Like, we're that confident now. Like, it's kind of funny because if you think in the analog world, how did you do this before? Well, you took an impression, you had a frame made, and maybe at the bite registration appointment, you tried that frame in with some wax on it. And
a week later.
And if the frame didn't fit, well, you tried to grind it. You do your best at getting it to fit. And if you
so you're out of luck, just saying.
Absolutely. Okay. And then you would, in the end, take another impression when you'd finally given up. So in the digital delivery of that same denture, all of those adjustments are done at the insertion appointment. And so where we're at right now is I'm not doing any adjustments anymore. Now they're just clicking in. When we first started this, there was a lot of cursing. Because we didn't have the success. We didn't know how to design a frame that didn't get overwhelmed by the digital accuracies, because we didn't have electropolishing to save our butts in this, right? We had to find a way to make it fit without fitting too much. And that's really threading the needle on a digital framework. And that's been the back and forth with George, because, we would, we're the front lines here. We're trying this in the mouth, and we're turning around and saying, okay, George, that really didn't go as planned. and George would be, okay, let me look at that. And so we've had this great relationship where nobody seemed to fear making a mistake. And I said this to Kaylee when she first started. If I've realized anything in this business, it's not about making mistakes. You're going to make mistakes. It's how well you solve the problems that you create for yourself. In an analog lab, what happens? You've got a wonderful model that you drop on the floor. It's all about how well you can put that thing back together and still end up with something that works. And it's not that you won't make mistakes. You just got to recover from them. So
yeah, from my history, everybody makes mistakes in the lab. That's just happening.
Yeah, and that's the differentiator for success, is I've really discovered that, right? Is that you can work with people and they say they have great designers, but until you've really circled that square, you've connected those dots of why am I having this issue? And that was really the biggest thing that was preventing us from going to the mass market, was that we just don't have an army of Kayleys and Roberts that have made those connections solidly together. So it's not the technical thing that's holding us back. It's just about we need another generation of users that understand digital design and the nuances therein. And so that was part of the reason why we decided to do a right-hand, left-hand thing, where I want to be able to do things like carded teeth, like wax. I want to be able to help all those people. But at the same time, we know where this is going. And we know that we just need to mature this a little bit more so that we can have a world full of Robert and Kayleys instead of just a few of them. And that's unfortunately the case right now. There's just so few of us. You can probably count us on two hands.
And I think I would add to that, when we first started working with George, we were dealing with a digital technician that had no analog experience. So you can imagine someone highly skilled in 3Shape that could design a framework that looks beautiful, but never had to address all of those issues analog techs had worked out over the millennia, right? They had to learn how to get a frame to actually not only fit a model, but fit a mouth. And I think when Kaylee came along, what it managed for me was to incorporate the design service in-house. So when the design went south, we could look at each other and go, yeah, that didn't work. and we could fix it. And so, I can't tell you how many times we did things twice because we knew that it was not an optimal result. But that's really the point. I think keeping everything in-house and finding those people that can design with analog skills in mind to produce a digital product.
I've seen a lot of beautiful frames, and they don't fit. It's a big difference between having one that can fit and look good.
Yeah, well, you hit on the head. I mean, Kaylee has come to me with things that she's found online. We said, what do you think of this? You know, and it would be this spectacular design. I said, well, it's completely impractical. It's shiny.
Yeah.
And it is a food trap from hell on every, but it really looks good, you know.
It looks really beautiful, yeah.
It looks really beautiful from an artistic perspective.
Instagram dentistry. Yeah. I love it.
So
I have a question about the mill. So you said this works with a couple different mills, but all those materials, don't they all need different burrs? Could you use a titanium burr? I mean, don't you need something special?
Yeah, I mean, and really, the machine is where we started on this one, right? Because we were one of the first people to start machining titanium in a big way, and we were not wanting to get the $500,000 machines that are very capable of it, but really not practical for an everyday user. I spent years looking around the world trying to find the best machine I could find for this. And we ended up nearly buying a German machine company. Then we ended up with Redon out of Turkey in Istanbul. And
we've heard of them before, yeah.
You know what? Honestly, the strongest machine in that footprint that I've ever seen in my career. And I was told by the Germans that what they were doing was impossible, and then I got to see it. I'm like, okay. And the machine is entirely full of German components, so it's it's a very robust and great machine. But you know, it's difficult selling a machine that isn't from a Western country. And that is definitely something that we noticed a little bit of pushback on. And so as much as I loved the machine and I think it's capable, and if someone asked me which machine should I get for metal, I would recommend that one. But at the same time, for us, we wanted to be relevant to as many users as possible. And so not everyone wants to make metal. And so that's why we are also looking for like the Roland 53s and your more everyday machine that isn't necessarily meant to mill any metal, but turns out you can. And so we were looking at our multi-material processing and looking at printed metals. And so it turns out that if we're not starting with a big metal block, but we only have a little bit of metal there, we can very carefully shave it down in machines that were otherwise never able to do it. So that's the exciting thing that is coming next. But we also want to start, using those machines just to do regular dentures and everyday relines and the things that people are doing every day. So they get more and more comfortable to start to explore more in the digital space.
We run 2 Redon mills and, sort of following in George's thoughts and just knowing that we needed it for titanium, and that's where we're at.
What scanner are you using?
Benchtop's an E4.
Okay.
3-shape, and I have a Trios 4. It's got a few miles on it now.
Yeah, sure.
It's an iOS, so...
I get to have the bragging rights. I think I was the first denturist in North America to have a Trios. It was the Trios Color Pod. It looked like a bazooka, the massive one. Oh, yeah.
See, that was the only scanner you could play Pong on, too, wasn't
it? You could probably hold someone up with it, too. Yeah, it's pretty funny. But, it was funny because back in those days, like the cross-arch distortion was a big deal for us, right? Like we tried to make partials right in the very beginning. So that's what we first started getting the Trios for, was trying to get an actual framework. And it turned out that the cross-arch was so bad we could only make flippers. And so we started out making the world's first digital flipper from an iOS to same day, let's get it in your mouth. And we didn't even have software at the time that could redo it. So we didn't even use Exocad or 3-shape. We used a small French company called C4W that was actually making partial framework software. And it was all we had to put all these people together just to be able to get a flipper out. And now, it's something that we can do without even thinking about it. So it's been really interesting to see the whole industry mature. Now it's just about getting it adopting. Like that's the problem, is that these have been there for many years now, but we're still not able to crack that 15-20% level.
How does towns north of Vancouver become the epicenter of digital removable?
Esther.
Fascinating to me.
Esther.
I guess. I mean, I know she was a force, but...
I would also throw in edentialism. I think what
That
you're
helps.
really talking about
I
is
see what you're saying now. Okay.
Yeah.
but the
I'll also
necks aren't
yeah.
all red, not all of them.
I think there's another major thing, and it's the Canada factor, right? Like in Canada, dentures go for more. Like we pay more for dentures, and therefore
Interesting.
denturists are able to afford more expensive equipment to be able to do this. And I think that that's really what differentiated us from the American market, really where we had people that were capable and willing to invest in efficiencies. And that's really why I think that Canada and BC in specific really became a pioneer, because we figured out ROI first. And that's the difference between a good hobby and a good business, right? Is one of them will pay itself off. And that's really what Esther was an absolute, master at, is she found out there was an 80% reduction in adjustments when you went from regular conventional process bases to milled bases. She knew that because she had meticulously kept every record for years. And that was over thousands of clients. So, it's reliable. And, Robert's seeing some similar kind of, amounts. So, using
Absolutely,
that
yeah.
and using that theory, it's like, well, why can't we bring that to existing processing techniques? So, like, we could process with an IVO base or IVO cap and then put it into the mill and machine the last millimeter of the tissue fitting surface. So now we can have a digital fit out of a conventionally processed case. So, like,
Well,
it's
how the hell does
amazing
that
to think.
work?
Oh, well, it's exactly the same as a reline. So think about it just like a reline, right? Where you can take the scan of the tissue fitting surface before you're processing it. When you're processing it, as long as the tissue fitting side is overbuilt and bigger than it should be, then you can put it into the same matrix
Mill it
that the
down.
reline went into, and it'll just shave down the tissue fitting surface to what it already was in the impression.
I'm gonna spend some time on Partially Bitten on Instagram here, and I'm gonna figure out what this is all about, because
It opens
I'm
up a
still
whole new world of
confused.
possibilities. So it's a long rabbit hole.
Yeah. I think it's fascinating, and I think it's great. I mean, but it sounds like you're really rolling this out slow. I mean, we have a lot of lab listeners. Is this ever going to hit
Well,
commercial labs?
that's exactly why we started with Lab Pilot and Relines, traditional carded teeth wax processing, and this digital fit enhancement, because that only requires a scan from any scanner, intraoral or box scanner. So as long as we're scanning that impression inside of that Flask puck, then we can make it work with anything. So that's the best part, is that we're agnostic for equipment. Any open machine, any scanner, as long as it's an STL, we'll make it work.
But I mean, I maybe I just don't understand what exactly, and we're getting up on the hour, but what you do to tell the machine, which already has CAM software.
Oh, so the CAM software has come bundled with the machine, but if it's an open
Yeah.
machine, it's able to run other CAMs as well, right? So it's not like you have to buy the CAM that lives on the machine, because it actually never lives on the machine. It lives on the PC that's beside the machine. And
Yeah.
we're sending the file to that machine. Well, that PC installation doesn't need to be a PC installation. It can be a cloud, and everything right now is in the cloud. So we already have our Google
Yeah.
Documents and everything there. And as a support person, if I'm a CAM company and I have all of these different PC installations, some of them are new, wonderful computers, some of them are on Windows 95, terrible ones. And so it
Yeah.
is a support nightmare. So for us, it was able to very, very quickly update and also to have stability and reliability. Because if we're going to do relines, we made a promise, right? Like that has to be out the door that day. Like
Yeah.
it's not a small thing to do a reline. It's probably one of the most high stress things to do, because there's no backup. You mess that one up, you are making a new set of teeth. And so
Yeah.
that's the reason that we also wanted to like try to tackle one of the more challenging things, because this is a much more reliable process.
I love it. I think labs are going to just dig on this hardcore. I don't understand. I mean, I'm surprised people aren't knocking down your door.
But it's been exciting, and honestly, it's one of those, my God, why didn't I think of this earlier? Like, it's kind of obvious in hindsight, but only after you go down the hard road.
So what is it? Labpilot.com or
.net. .net. We got our eyes on
.net?
the .com guys. Hopefully they might go away and will be available. But yeah,
Oh, you're
labpilot.net.
playing that game, I lit.
Yeah, and that's us right now, and that's where you'll find everything. So we have some videos there and examples, but that's also where you'd go to upload your case and where you'd get your machine file back.
I love it. And you know what? Something we've learned on this podcast is you can always trust a denturist. And
Yeah, you know what? Elvis and I really love hearing about denturists on this podcast. We've learned so much about what you guys do, and we're definitely advocates of it.
No, we love them. And if Robert says it works, you know it's going to work. So
For sure.
yeah, Robert, Kaylee, thank you so much for joining us. I'm sure you're busy in your practice this time of the year, just like every other thing in dentistry with the insurance.
Everybody wanting their 2 front teeth for Christmas? Yes.
Yes.
What it comes down to.
Yes. Yeah. So we appreciate the time. And George, I mean, amazing. I love what you're trying to do and what you're bringing. It's great.
It's a passion. I'm not driven by anything else.
Yeah. Thank you so much. And I don't know, George, you bringing this to any like lab day show or
Yeah,
anything?
absolutely. We'll be in there, Chicago, so I hope to see you there.
Perfect.
And yeah, we're going to launch it right away. So this is officially taking the unveiling. So thank you for the opportunity.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, everybody.
Yep.
And
Thank you so much for having us.
yeah, have a
See ya,
great
guys.
weekend.
You too.
Thanks. Take care.
Bye now.
Bye.
Hope to
Bye.
see you in Chicago. A huge thanks to George, Robert, and Kaylee for coming on our podcast and talking about what we think, I know, will be huge once labs realize how much of a game changer this is going to be. I mean, think about it. Digital relines with the cost of regular acrylic. I mean, it's mind-blowing.
Mm-hmm.
For those labs limiting the amount you can do in a day because of technicians, it now opens it up to a whole new level. So everybody go check out labpilot.net to learn more, and of course, make sure you add them to your list of must-visit booths at Lab Day Chicago. God, that's in 2 months, Elvis. Holy moly.
It's insane. Yeah.
Go see them.
Absolutely. All right, everybody. Thank you for 2025. Cheers. Happy New Year. And we'll see you in 2026.
Yeah, and I will say Happy New Year and be safe. Have a designated driver, be smart, and have a great night.
Always the mom.
Yes, you know it.
Have a good one.
Bye. Just be happy.
The views and opinions expressed on the Voices from the Bench podcast are those of the guest and do not necessarily reflect the official policy or position of the host or Voices from the Bench, LLC.